I'm Kira Cleveland, and this is Human Intelligence. With my co-host, Ned Hayes, we talk about the importance of human creativity in the age of AI. Welcome to the future.
I just don't see it happening. There's a lot more to writing a book than stringing words together. AI just can't do it. It's not just about writing code. There's more to it than that. So if you want every book to sound the same, then yeah, let AI write it. Art is about the human experience. You can't take that out of the equation.
The Human Intelligence Show is excited to welcome Patrick McDonald to the show today. He is the creator of QueryTracker and Query Manager, the industry-leading online querying tools for authors and for agents. And he's been bringing together authors and agents for nearly 20 years. And he has a new book coming out, The Modern Guide to Querying Literary Agents. And we're going to hear about his book and also about his work creating QueryTracker and what it's taken to make that the industry standard. So welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thanks, Ned. Thanks for having me on.
So tell me, first of all, I'm an author. I've used QueryTracker for many years. How did you come to create QueryTracker, and how did that come into the world?
Well, back then I was a dabbling author myself, and I stepped into the query trenches and was blindsided by how complicated it was. And I just thought, boy, it sure would be nice if there was just like a little website where I could keep track of things,
Mm-hmm.
because I was losing track of who I queried and who I didn't query and who I heard back from. And then I thought, well, I do that. Why can't I just make one? And I really just made it for my own use, and it kind of just took off from there.
Right, because you've been a software developer for many decades now.
That's right.
Yeah. So what kind of software did you develop before QueryTracker?
I dabbled in a lot of things on the side, but mostly for my day job, I was doing industrial automation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and automating factories, things like that.
Got it. Okay. So from industrial automation to automating creativity in a way, or allowing people to track it. So, for
Yeah.
those who don't know, those who aren't deep in the query trenches, could you give us a brief summary of what Query Tracker does and then what Query Manager does?
Yeah. Well, QueryTracker came along first. And like I said, I wanted a way to keep track. Because for those who don't know, when you're querying, you're sending out emails. And back then it was even postal mail
Yeah.
to agents trying to get their attention. And you got to keep track of who did I query, who didn't I query. So that was the first thing of QueryTracker, was just to keep a record of everything.
Mhm.
And then just naturally, it also needed a list of all the agents who were available that you could contact. So it
Mhm.
became from that, it went into a database of all the agents. And then I realized I'm collecting all this information of when people queried and when they heard back. I could turn that into some reports where you
Mhm.
can now look up an agent and see what their average reply times are and how often do they seek this type of book or that type of book. That was QueryTracker. And then several years after that, I thought, well, let's make something for the agents to use, because now
Mhm.
they're getting inundated by all these email queries. Let's make some tools that make it easier for them to go through all the queries and reply to them, which helps authors too, because now the authors can get their replies faster. And that's Query Manager.
Mhm. So, Query Manager is only used by agents, or is it also used by publishers as well?
There's some publishers that use it as well, yeah.
Okay. And so, over the time that Query Tracker, well, backing up, how long has Query Tracker been around then? For 20 years
Uh,
or so?
2007.
Okay. So almost 20 years. And so when you first launched this, you had one objective in mind. Have you fulfilled that objective? Have other things emerged over time that you've had to conquer?
In the QueryTracker space or something else?
Yeah, Query Tracker,
Yeah.
like generally you set out to solve a problem for authors and agents. Do you feel like you've really addressed that and nailed it?
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier now, but people always want more. Make it easier. Trying to always add new things. It's been added to quite a bit since then.
Yeah.
It's evolved a lot.
Well, it's fascinating to me that a system like this is pretty much the standard in a, really multi-billion dollar publishing industry. This is the place where every author and agent starts, as far as I know. Some agents still want an email. I haven't run across an agent for years who wants something in postal mail. But by and large, if you're online, you're an agent who's using Query Manager or using Query Tracker. Have you received feedback from agents and authors about the system?
Yeah, the agents, the ones who use it, they really like it. And I think about half the agents in the country are using it.
Okay.
Um, and they find it really helpful. Makes their days a lot easier.
So
We have,
what's changed over the past 20 years? I guess that's one of my questions of what has shifted in the publishing world.
oh, like we said, postal queries. The earlier
Yeah.
days of QueryTracker was actually had a tool to fill out an envelope with the
Mm.
agent's address on it and everything. So that eventually went away.
Yeah, got it. And so you've learned a lot about the agent and the author relationship over that time, and that actually led you into your new book that's coming out, right?
Yeah, I kind of was forced to become an expert
Hmm.
because people just assumed I knew what I was doing. They were wrong, but I would get lots of emails from people saying, "Well, I got this situation. How do I handle this? What do I do here?"
Uh-huh.
And I would get the same questions over and over again. So I started writing down canned replies so I can easily just say, "Okay, that's question number three. Here's the
Yeah,
answer."
yeah.
And after I ended up with a stack of those questions, I thought, you know what, this could be a book. Then I could just give the people the book, and then I don't have to answer the emails.
So if you could give us a little preview, what kind of questions did you have to answer? And you don't have to unpack them all the way, but I'm just curious what kinds of inquiries.
Oh, it's a wide gambit from what is a nudge to what's my genre.
Hmm.
It just everything you could think of, and some you probably couldn't think of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've kind of stayed away for the moment from the elephant in the room, which is the emergence of AI. And I'll kind of preface this by saying that there are various sides in this discussion. Some people, especially in Silicon Valley, believe that AI will replace writers, and some writers are kind of vociferously resisting that idea. So, where do you fall on that spectrum?
I just don't see it happening. There's a lot more to writing a book than stringing words together.
Hmm.
AI just can't do it. We have the same issue in the coding industry. AI is going to replace coders. I said, no, because it's not just about writing code. There's more to it than that. And so if you want every book to sound the same, then yeah, let AI write it.
So, what you're saying is that unique human voices will still be
Right.
important.
Right.
Yeah.
Art is about the human experience. You can't take that out of the equation.
Yeah. So have you run into any issues with people who are submitting work using AI or wanting to write query letters with AI with QueryTracker? Have authors asked for that or?
They haven't asked to use AI. I get a lot of questions about what constitutes the use of AI because
Mhm.
almost all agents now will have a disclaimer. We don't want anything written in AI. And
Yeah.
they'll email me and say, well, what does that mean? I mean, I only use AI. They're all my words, but AI kind of rephrased it to make it sound better. I
Yeah.
said, well, that counts as AI. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And then I'll get some people saying, well, I just used an AI spell checker. Well, that's okay because that's not really AI. That's just a spell checker. And they branded it AI to make it sound better.
Yeah. Well,
So
for those people who might not understand AI in detail, and you're a software developer, could you give us a thumbnail sketch of when we talk about AI, it's a whole collection of technologies. When we're talking about AI that could be used in writing, what are we actually talking about?
yeah, because it's not really AI. It's really what they call a large language model, an
Mhm.
LLM. But AI sounds better. And you've all used text editor where it tries to put in the next word for you,
Yeah.
right?
Like like
Autocomplete.
right, like in Gmail or text messaging, it will pop
Yeah,
up I say thanks and it will add the word much
right.
or
Or
thank you very
you, thank
much. Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
all it's doing is it's saying that the computer is going, well, I've seen the word thanks 6 million times, and 95% of the time, the next word is you. So I'm going to guess the next word is you.
Yeah.
And that's all these LLMs or AI writing books is doing. It's
Hmm.
saying, hey, most of the time the next word is going to be this, so that's the word I'm going to put in. And then oh, now what's the most common next word after that? Yeah. So that's all it's really doing. It's more complicated than that, but that's basically it.
Yeah. Well, to go down the philosophical rabbit hole, and this is a kind of a provocative way of phrasing it, but what are human beings doing that's different than just predicting the next word?
That's the creativity behind it.
Hmm.
a human being might find another word that's no one's ever put there before,
Yeah.
but it works great, but no one ever thought of it.
Yeah. So it's an original idea. It's a unique way of looking at things.
Yeah,
It's a way that reconceptualizes the world according to that particular human mind.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, you ever read a book and you're surprised by the ending?
Yeah.
AI, it's not going to be able to do that. It's going to put the ending it's seen most often.
Yeah. Yeah, I did find one particular great way of using AI that I don't use, but a friend of mine does. And he will actually put his short story into AI and say, okay, what do you think the ending is? Give me 5 endings. And then he'll say, okay, all of those 5 endings are clearly they've been done before. They're all
Right.
tropes, they're all obvious. I need to do something else. So I need to do something that is uniquely me, that is not anything that AI could predict. To your point, the creativity, the uniqueness needs to come from a human being.
So he's using it to discount all the common endings, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That sounds like a good use for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So within the querying world and the world of authors and publishers, you wrote this book, and I'm curious what your process was to find an agent for it. Did you use
Okay.
QueryTracker?
I did. And I
Yeah.
have a co-author, Alyssa Matesic. She has a pretty popular YouTube channel on writing and editing. So I had the statistics and the query process down, but I wasn't as comfortable as a writer. So we teamed up and we wrote this together. So the writing process was she took the chapters that were more about writing, and I took the chapters that were more about querying. And then
Hmm.
we sent it off to some agents. Now I of course know some agents in the industry. So
Yeah.
we started with them. It was really easy for us. And I know that makes a lot of other authors mad, but we just knew them. So it was a casual conversation. Hey, we want to do this book.
Right. So let's talk about the query actually for a second, because I've actually run business teams for a number of years alongside of my work as an author. And one thing that I came to understand very quickly is that a query letter is it's just a kind of standard business letter. It's a very short proposal saying, "Hey, I have this thing, or I'm thinking about this thing. Might you be interested in it?"
Right.
And it's not a magical talisman of some sort.
Right. You just want to wet the whistle a little bit and see if they're interested. And we did that. It's nonfiction, so you have to have a book proposal. So
Mhm.
we did all the steps, and we sent that off to the agents. But we called them first and says, hey, I'm going to be submitting this query to you.
Yeah,
Watch
well,
for
it's
it.
kind of gratifying to know that even you had to go through the query tracker process, and you had to
Yeah.
go through the process of creating a query letter and a proposal, because I think some authors, especially beginning authors, think that there are magic tricks that other
Yeah.
authors have. And there aren't any ways to not jump through the hoops. You still have to go
Yeah.
through the standard hoops, right?
Right. And this is nonfiction, and it's in my field, so it was pretty easy to get the agent's attention. If I had written fiction, I'd have
Yeah.
to jump through the same hoops as everybody else. It wouldn't have been nearly as easy,
Yeah.
because I have not proven myself in the fiction market.
Yeah. Well, so what are some of your favorite books, either nonfiction or fiction?
Oh, let's see. What am I reading right now? Not much.
Well, you could just start with what genres you like
Oh,
to dip into.
I tend to read a lot of science fiction,
Uh-huh.
maybe some thrillers. Lately, I've just been listening to audiobooks.
Yeah, audiobooks are really a great innovation that happened over the
Yeah.
last, 25 years in terms of explosion of audiobooks.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what I found was when you're reading a physical book, every day you pick it up, you look at the title, you look at the author's name. Well, now on an audiobook, I can't tell you the title of the book because I don't see it every time. I forget what it's
Right.
called. I can't remember who the author was because I don't look at it. I just hit play.
Right. It's not like the audiobook, every time you start playing, it announces like, The
Yeah.
Likeness by Tana French,
Right.
age 52. It's not doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So, and
you're
then I got a bad memory. So people ask me, well, who's that author? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I have to look. Like,
Yeah. Great. So you mentioned that doing fiction is harder, and you said because you haven't established yourself in that genre. So
yeah.
is it easier for writers who have an established following? This is kind of a leading question, but maybe you can fill us in. You're an expert in this area.
In fiction,
Yeah.
actually, not as much as you would think. That's one of the things we covered in the book. We interviewed hundreds of agents And that's one of the questions we asked them is how much background do they have to have? And I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it was a really small percentage that wanted a lot of background from a fiction author.
Mm.
Nonfiction, it was huge. You had to know what you were talking about in nonfiction.
Right. If you're writing a book about wine, you should be a wine expert,
Yeah, you
right?
should know
If you're
about
writing,
wine, right?
yeah,
If you're writing a murder mystery that takes place in a winery,
yeah,
you're okay.
right, right. So, what are there any tricks of the trade that help fiction writers to stand out in the crowded market?
No, afraid not. A lot of it is timing.
Uh-huh.
What's popular right now. Like for example, 20 years ago when I first started QueryTracker, vampire books were all the rage.
Hmm.
You're probably not going to be able to sell one now, right?
Because the market
So
has been kind of
the
saturated.
market shifted to something else. I think right
Uh,
now they're really into what do they call it, RPG fiction.
right. And then there's also romantasy that had a big,
Romanticy is huge right
yeah.
now. Yeah, I remember going through phases. Middle grade was real popular. YA, dystopian was a big hit for a while.
Hmm.
So it's kind of just you got to wait for your field to come around, and then people will try and chase it, but it moves so fast you can't chase it.
Right. By the time something is in market, maybe the wave has already passed over.
Right. And that's why you can't use AI, because I've had people contact me and say, "Oh, you need to integrate AI into QueryTracker to help me find the right agent. The AI will tell me which agent to query."
Hmm.
Well, AI is not going to know what the next fad's going to be.
Yeah.
AI can tell you, "Well, this agent signed 5 mystery authors this month.
Hmm.
So if you write mysteries, you should query this agent." But that's not true either, because after 5, maybe that's enough for her and she's going to move on to something else.
Right. Right. Because they don't always do the same thing every single day.
Yeah.
People are
Right.
not machines.
Yep.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned earlier that all these agents have a clause that says, did you use AI for this? And they don't accept work written by AI because
Mhm.
publishers also have clauses that say they don't accept work written by AI.
Right.
So
Well, you can't copyright it.
yeah, it can't be owned by a human being. That's a super important point, Patrick. Could
Yeah.
you spell that out a bit more for us?
Yeah. Some courts have decided that you cannot copyright AI created material.
Hmm.
So if you can't, so some publisher can't print this book, and then anybody else can print copies of it too and compete against them with the same book. So
That's not a good
they're
scenario.
not going to want to do that.
Yeah, yeah, because you don't own the intellectual property.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, since all these publishers and agents have clauses against AI, are there any ways of actually preventing or keeping AI out of the publishing workflow? I'm asking because there have been several instances recently. Like I'm thinking of the Hachette Shy Girl incident. Are
Yeah.
you familiar with it?
Yeah. Yeah. That was a big stinker for that one.
Yeah. Could you tell us about that and what happened there?
I didn't follow it too closely, and it's just that I believe it was a previously self-published book. Hachette picked it up, published
Mhm.
it, and then found out or were highly suspectful that it was written by AI and canceled the contract.
So the
And
book was ready to go out in the field with a big time publisher, one of the big five,
yeah,
and they were going to do international distribution and everything, and then they yanked it, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it was very embarrassing for them. And now nobody wants to get in that situation again, so they're being extra careful.
Yeah.
The problem is they use AI to try to detect AI, and AI
Which
is not
isn't,
perfect. So
yeah. So it doesn't really work.
yeah,
Yeah, the AI detectors too try to detect patterns, and those patterns can shift.
yeah,
AI can be configured to not produce those recognizable patterns. So then you're kind of stuck, right?
yeah. Now, unfortunately, you're going to end up in situations where the AI detectors are going to start reporting false positives and
Hmm.
ruin somebody's career and accuse them of using AI when they didn't.
Yeah.
So
Have you run into that?
it's going to get ugly. I have not yet, but it's bound to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've had authors ask about using AI. Have you had agents ask about ways that you can prevent AI submissions? Because I'm sure they get submissions through QueryTracker and like you don't have a gate on there per se to say, oh, this is AI, which of course is hard to do,
Yeah.
as we talked about.
Right. I've had a few asks, and I've told them the same thing. It says, I just don't trust those AI detectors to be good enough to rely on.
Yeah.
I don't want to do those end up with a false positive.
Right, right. That would be a worst case for everybody. Everybody
Right.
ends up feeling bad about that.
Hmm.
Right. So back to your book for a second. If I go out and get your book, The Modern Guide to Querying Literary Agents, then what benefit will I gain?
Well, I've looked at a lot of books that were supposed to be about querying,
Hmm.
and they weren't. So many of them they would touch on querying, and then they would talk about other subjects about writing. Some of them, like how to write, how to market your book after it's published, just going all over the place.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered, why doesn't someone write a book just about querying? Why put all this other fluff in there?
Yeah.
And then I found out because I talked to some when I was querying. Agents replied and said, this is too narrow of a market. We want you to cut out some of the querying stuff and put out more general writing information so we can have a broader audience. And it's
Hmm.
like, well, no, that's not our vision for the book. So we went with the agent who had the same vision as us.
Hmm.
And then she ran into the same problem with publishers. They wanted a broader market so they could sell more copies.
Yeah.
And we stuck to our guns and we said, no, we're not going to do that. Everything in this book needs to be there. We can't take anything out so we can put other fluff in there.
Yeah.
So it's the first book that I've ever seen that is totally just about the querying process. And we broke
That's
it. We're calling it the what to expect when you're expecting version of querying.
yeah.
And
So what do you expect when you're expecting is a great series of books about getting ready for childbirth, right?
yeah,
And so this is kind of the equivalent for getting ready to get your book out there in the world.
yeah. And we hope we all answer every question. I'm sure we missed something, but
Yeah.
it's all in there and it's broken up into 8 steps. The first step is, make sure your book is actually ready.
Mhm.
Okay? And then how to find agents, how to write your query letter, how to send the queries, because there's so many different ways now to send the queries. I'm doing this off the top of my head that I might have some of these steps out of order, but how to evaluate the replies when you get them,
Mhm.
how to send off your manuscript if you get a request. So, all 8 steps, you can read it from cover to cover, or you can just go to the step that you're on if you've already been querying and go from there.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I assume in your book it does have a few tips and tricks on how to use QueryTracker. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's not just if you're using QueryTracker. It'll tell you how to do it without QueryTracker,
Hmm.
but we're also trying to tell you the best way to do things, and of course, that's to use QueryTracker. So
Yeah. Right. Right. So my assumption is that QueryTracker and Query Manager are now your full-time employment.
they are, yeah.
And so how long did it take before that happened for you?
I ran it for 10 years and still had the day job doing the automation.
Yeah.
So it was about 2016. I finally left the day job, and that's when I made Query Manager because now I have all this time on my hands. So I made Query Manager in 2016 then.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Well, what day does your book actually officially launch?
August 25th.
Okay. Fantastic. Then you can get the new book, The Modern Guide to Querying Literary Agents, on August 25th. And who's it published by, or where can I get this? I assume in bookstores everywhere.
Yeah, it's Matt Holt Books.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be
Yeah.
in bookstores anywhere. You can pre-order it now.
Okay. Fantastic. And were there any surprises in the publishing or writing process for you?
It was interesting to go through it from this end.
Hmm.
And like I said, the whole make it the book more broad thing was surprising to me, but it answered a lot of questions for me.
Yeah.
The editing process. It took a year after we made the deal with the publisher to go through all the editing and cover design. Seems like it took forever.
It took a whole year, even though the book, like you know the content of the book really well, and you were able to sell the book, so it still took a year.
Yeah, and being nonfiction, the book didn't have to be complete, so we had a couple sample chapters written, and then they gave us I don't remember, a couple of months to finish the book,
Hmm.
and then they went through the editing process, typesetting, and they would send us copies. And there's a lot of charts and graphs in the book because we go through a lot of query data. So they had to. I made the charts, but they didn't like them, so they had to redo all the charts, all the graphs.
Got it. Well, it sounds like a really valuable book with a lot of great data in it and a lot of great tips and tricks and ways to actually think about the querying process. I look forward to reading it.
Thanks.
Great. And what's next for you and for QueryTracker and Query Manager?
Well, right now QueryTracker and Query Manager are separate
Mm-hmm.
because QueryTracker, is for all authors. There are agents on there who don't use Query Manager. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
sending email queries, you can still track them on QueryTracker. And then Query Manager is just for those agents. And it gets kind of confusing that they're separate. They work together in some ways, but they are independent. And
Mm-hmm.
because it's confusing, I'm looking at more ways to bring them together, to combine them, to make it less confusing, but still keep it so you don't have to use both of them.
Got
That's
it.
proving a little difficult to find just the right combination there.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, we wish you all the best with your book launch and with continuing to maintain QueryTracker and Query Manager for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Ned.
You can find out more about any of these news items and hear the complete interview on the extended premium version of our podcast at humanintelligence.news. Today's episode was produced by Ned Hayes and engineered by Muhammad Adnan. Our analog-only human-themed music was created for the Human Intelligence podcast by Josh Pinkston of Nature and Spirit. This episode, and every episode, is brought to you by the Human Intelligence Institute team. Thanks for listening to today's episode. As always, this episode is available online at humanintelligence.news.